All right, so we're out here at Tuttle Creek State Park in Kansas. We've been off-roading for the last couple of days, and we have a breakage, so we're going to fix that. Please excuse my appearance because I haven't showered in 2 days from being out here camping. Trevor and his Jeep LJ has U-joints that's gone bad. So we're out here. It's actually not a bad fix. You can do it on the trail if you have to and you have the right tools. The two things that are kind of weird that you have to make sure you keep with you if you're going to do this kind of repair on the trail is a 36 millimeter socket and a 13 millimeter 12-point socket as well, because that's the only way you can get the wheel hubs off the unit bearing. So we've got the axle shaft off. It's the short side. So right now, Bill, who does most of the work for us, and Trevor, who's also does a lot of work, and we like to make fun of him. They're working on it right now. They're trying to get the C-clips, or clips on the other side of the U-joint on the cap that he has to remove before we can pound the U-joint out, and then we'll put a new U-joint in. So that's where we are right now working on it. We've already disassembled it, taken the brakes off, taken the unit bearing off, and so these are the originals. He's got about 55,000 miles on the Jeep. So 55,000 miles, it's an 05, and so those joints have never been apart, so it's gonna fight us a little bit. All right, so this is the replacement U-joint. It's a Spicer unit. It's the factory unit for this Rubicon. Spicer makes a great U-joint. It's plenty strong in most circumstances, unless you're doing some really severe wheeling. It's a great joint. So this is what the U-joint is, and basically it allows it to rotate while you turn the wheel. So a lot of times with a Jeep like this, if you hear a popping while you're turning, you hear a clicking, a popping, something like that. In his case, it was kind of a squeak sound. That a lot of times is a bad U-joint. His, I have a feeling it's just that the grease that's inside here has dried out completely, because you've got grease and these needle bearings. That's what gives you the rotation, and they've just dried out, and that's what's giving you the squeak. What they're trying to get out right now is the C-clip that runs inside this groove. So they're trying to beat that out so they can remove it. If you zoom in there, you can see the U-joint coming out. There, you just pop the cap off that side. Is it dry?
That one's all right.
All right, now watch how Bill does this, because this is, a lot of people will use two sockets. They'll put a larger socket on the downside of it. They'll put a smaller socket that basically fits the U-joint size. So they'll put this on here, like this. They'll hit this with a hammer and drive it down to a larger socket here, and it'll move out, pound through. He's gonna do it by holding it with his fingers and then hitting the unit itself. That's what's giving him the squeak right there, is that no grease in there.
Yeah, it's not quite bad yet. I could have drove home, but you had heard it now and
now you have a choice. You have a choice. You could put a greasable U-joint in there, but that's not what they used from the factory. Some people think that a greasable U-joint, because there's a channel that goes through the cross of the middle, that it's a weaker U-joint. There's some debate whether or not that's true. If you keep a greasable U-joint, regular maintenance, it's usually fine. But a solid U-joint like this, which is what came from in the factory, is in my opinion, is a stronger U-joint to use. If you had to take this to a Jeep dealer and have them replace a U-joint on your Jeep, it would probably be between, I'm gonna say $600 and $1,000, $600 and $1,000. It's a lot of labor, but it's really not that difficult. Once you see how it's done, it's really not that bad. I figure if any repair you can do on the trail, if you can do it on the trail, you should be able to do it in your garage and not have to pay a professional mechanic to do it. As you're putting the U-joint in, you pull the cross up, which is, you know, the T shape, and then you put the needle bearings and the cap on the cross so that it holds the needle bearings in place while you tap very gently the cap back in. So that seats one side of it. And then you'll basically do the same thing on the other side. Okay. So this one, same thing. Watch the way he'll lift this up so it sticks out of the ears of the axle shaft. Just gonna put it on and kind of start it. And while holding the axle, holding the U-joint up into the cap to keep the needle bearings in place, he'll tap it in. So this isn't really like a normal wear item. That was one of the questions. Is this something that, you know, you just have to do at a certain mileage interval? Not really. I mean, they do wear out, so eventually you do have to replace them, but this is not something that's a scheduled maintenance. Trevor had to do his at 55,000 miles. My Jeep has almost 100,000 miles on it, and it still had the original U-joints in it before I changed the axle shafts over. So it's not something that you have to regularly do. But if you off-road your Jeep and it breaks, it's well worth knowing how to do this, because you've got U-joints in your front axle shafts, you've got U-joints in your front drive shaft and your rear drive shaft. All of those basically are replaced the same way. All right, so that's a abbreviated version of basically how you change a U-joint and how you change an axle shaft if you need to out on the trail or back at the campground like we are. And now we're gonna go grill some burgers and have some adult beverages and enjoy the 4th of July here. That's what day it is while we're filming this. All right, that's it for Roadless. See you next time.